Why do we care more about disappointing others than betraying ourselves? Think about it. You go out of your way to support a partner, you stay late to finish a project for your boss, or you even drop everything to help a friend in need. And sometimes people do that to a fault and go so far as neglecting themselves, or even worse, losing themselves in toxic relationships in the process. And most of the time, you don't even hesitate because you don't want to disappoint or let anyone down. But when it comes to yourself, or many of us, it's a different story. We let our health slide. We stay stuck in a job we hate and postpone our career change or the setting up of our business. We ignore the changes to our behaviors that we know could make our life better. And it's really strange when you think about it. The fact that you can be reliable for others and summon all the discipline in the world to avoid letting them down. But when it's about keeping promises to yourself, suddenly your word doesn't carry the same weight. So instead of moving towards an improved version of ourselves, we fall for behavioral patterns that feel harmless in the moment, but that quietly pulls us away from a better future. Until we end up living a life of quiet desperation, if I may borrow Thoreau's words. So, what are these patterns? Well, first, we procrastinate. And you've probably noticed this in your own life. When someone else is counting on you, whether it's a boss waiting on a report or a friend expecting you to show up, eventually you feel the pressure and you get it done. And maybe it's at the very last minute, but still, you deliver. But when it's about your own goals, the ones without a fixed deadline, the ones no one else is asking about, suddenly there's no urgency. And so you push them back again and again. That's why some people keep repeating the same story, like, I'm going to start my business, or I'm going to finally get back in shape. They've been saying it for months or sometimes years, but the action never comes. But here's the tricky part. Initially, when you're sharing your goals with others, saying them out loud gives you a little rush. You get a dopamine hit because for a second, it feels like you're ambitious. It feels like you're moving towards something. But the reality is, you get an undeserved gratification from pretending to be something you're not acting on. And so later down the line, you're still in the same place, realizing that what you had wasn't commitment. It was just the comfort of sounding determined without actually being so. The second pattern, and this one is tricky, it's avoidance disguised as fake progress. Now hear me out. On the surface, you may feel like you're making progress. You're researching, you're preparing, gathering information, maybe even investing in courses or certifications. And at first glance, it feels productive. You can even convince yourself that you're moving forward. But deep down, you know that you're circling around the real action instead of taking it because it frightens you. Take someone who wants to start a business. Instead of putting their product out there or even trying to make that first uncomfortable sale or call when no one's heard about them yet, they spend months reading books, collecting advice, improving their business plans, and convincing themselves that they're not ready yet. But you'll never know enough to know for sure that you're 100% ready when all you're doing is missing opportunities. Or think about the person who finally signs up for a gym membership. They go a handful of times, they feel good about the decision, and then they stop going altogether. The membership card itself becomes the achievement. It's like a proof that the intent is there, while the actual transformation never happens. And that's the thing. Fake progress feels safer than real progress. Because if you're just preparing, you don't risk failing. You don't risk rejection. You get to feel like you're moving without ever leaving your comfort zone. But the longer you stay in that loop, the more you realize that the safety net you've built is just another cage. The third pattern is keeping yourself busy all the time. And from the outside, it may even look positive. You're always available, always helping, always saying yes. Your calendar is full, your to-do list never ends, and people see you as dependable. And on the surface, it feels good. You're productive. You're useful. You're needed. But here's the truth. A lot of that busyness is just another form of avoidance. It's easier to answer emails all day than to sit down and work on that career change you've been putting off. The real danger with busyness is that the world rewards it. People thank you for being so reliable and always showing up. And slowly, that praise convinces you that all this activity is proof of progress. But deep down, you know the truth. You've built a life that's full of tasks, but empty of fulfillment. And the more you confuse being busy with actually moving forward, the longer you stay stuck exactly where you are. Now, regardless of the pattern, the result is the same. You choose short-term comfort over the long-term outcomes you say you want so bad. And so that makes it seem like you just kind of want them. But the thing is, in the moment, it feels like relief. You don't have to face the discomfort. You don't have to feel lost. You don't have to risk failing. But afterward, there's always the silent weight, the quiet guilt, the self-talk that says your willpower just isn't strong enough. And this is where most people stop. They think the problem is discipline or motivation or some missing piece of character. But what if I told you that it's not that simple? What if the problem isn't your supposedly weak resolve at all, but something deeper, something that's wired into you over time with psychological roots and even physiological consequences in how your body and brain respond to discomfort? In fact, a lot of it comes down to how your brain and body react when you're faced with something uncomfortable. Now think about it. You sit down to start that project that you've been putting off. You open a blank document and suddenly you feel stuck because you don't know where to start, what you should look for and where. And so you freeze in the realization that your creative or analytical thinking is lacking outside of the tools you have at work, for instance. Or you're thinking about going to the gym and suddenly, that voice in your head that says, yeah, no, that's not happening today, maybe tomorrow. And that's because in those moments, when your mind perceives a threat to your emotional or physical integrity, your body slips and enters what we call the fight or flight response. Now, the tricky part is when you choose the flight option, when you put off the task, grab your phone, or distract yourself with something easier, your brain rewards you. You feel a little wave of relief, and the discomfort kind of goes quiet. And that's a dopamine hit. It doesn't matter that you avoided the thing that mattered. Your brain registers that escape as a win. And the more often you do it, the stronger that loop becomes. And Warren Buffett said that
the chains of habit are too light to be felt until they're too heavy to be broken. And I see that all the time. I see people habit patterns that are self-destructive when they're 50 or 60, and they really can't change them. They're imprisoned by that.
But the real cost is that every time you take the escape route, you shrink the part of yourself that believes you can handle discomfort. You start teaching yourself that I can't deal with this. I need a way out. And so the habit reinforces itself. On the flip side, when you face the discomfort and push through, when you actually go for that workout when you don't feel like it, or make the slightest progress on that project that you were trying so hard to avoid, you build your self-trust and you tell your brain, I can do hard things. I can rely on myself. So the cycle really comes down to this. Whichever behavior you feed grows. If you keep choosing relief, you strengthen avoidance and weaken resilience. But if you choose to lean into discomfort, even in small doses, you strengthen your capacity to act and your belief in yourself. And this is why it's not just about willpower. It's about understanding how your system is wired and realizing that the more you let those patterns run unconsciously, the more they quietly shape the story you tell yourself about who you are and what you're capable of. Now, here's the rub. You might live with these patterns for years without realizing what they're doing to you. Because as long as they're unconscious, they just run on autopilot. You avoid, you distract, you postpone, and it feels like that's just who you are. But the moment you start to recognize them, to notice the procrastination, the fake progress, the busyness, the numbing, they stop being unconscious. And from that point on, every time you fall back into them, it's not just a mindless habit anymore. It's a choice. And that's where the damage cuts deeper. Because once you know, but you still choose the escape, you're not just postponing a task, you're actively betraying yourself. You're reinforcing the story that you can't be trusted, that your own word doesn't matter. And the more you do it, the more it eats away at your confidence and your true capabilities. Now, sure, you can't always choose your circumstances. Life throws things at you that you can't control and can even feel a certain way about them that you don't comprehend at first. But you can choose how you respond. And if you choose the escape route, knowing full well what you're doing, then you're walking straight into willful self-sabotage. But even then, these choices run deeper than laziness or a lack of discipline. In fact, more often than not, it's a deep lack of self-trust that you've learned long ago. For some of us, it starts with a kind of a learned helplessness. Maybe as a child you weren't allowed to make real choices, or every attempt to take responsibility was taken out of your hands. Sometimes the adults around you dismissed what you wanted, and other times they were so anxious to let you fail that they hovered. So much so that you never had the chance to test yourself or even get a chance to try. Either way, the message was the same. You can't handle it. We'll handle it for you. And when that gets repeated over and over, you internalize it. You start believing that your efforts don't matter, that your voice carries less weight. So by the time you become an adult, hesitation feels natural. You always second guess yourself. You wait for permission. You doubt your ability to take action on your own, not because you're not capable, but because you were never given the chance to build that trust in yourself. Another piece is how you were taught to value your own word or treat your own commitments. In many homes, the message was clear. Schoolwork came first, chores were more important, your siblings or your parents' emotional needs were more important. So you were taught silently to neglect your inner world and that your own word didn't really matter. That what you want can wait, that you can wait. And so today, when you break your word to yourself, it doesn't even feel unusual. It just feels familiar. And finally, the more insidious one is feeling like you're unworthy or not enough. If as a kid, you were noticed or shown affection only when you got the grades, behaved the right way, or made people proud, then deep down you learn to confuse your basic need for love and connection with achievement and performance. You absorb the idea that people would like you not for who you were, but for what you produced. And this kind of conditional love leaves a deep scar, because as an adult, you start believing that you have to earn your own respect the same way, by prioritizing what others think of you and what value you bring them. And in turn, you don't feel entitled to rest, to care for yourself, or to put energy in your own projects. You convince yourself there are always more important things to earn first, and that self-care and self-compassion are a luxury you only deserve after you've proved yourself. So you see, the consequences of your conditioning are enormous. It's not only about feeling tired or distracted, it's about how you stop trusting yourself over time. It's about how you tell yourself smaller stories, aim for smaller goals, settle with a bullshit job you hate, a relationship you disdain, a diet you're not proud of, and so you live more cautiously than you need to. But the truth is, when you shrink yourself in that way, it's not just you who pays the price. It's your partner, it's your kids, your family. They all feel it when you burn out, when you age before your time, when you collapse under this self-neglect, and they'll end up carrying the consequences of your bitterness, your resentment, your sickness, or worse. That's why self-respect isn't selfish. It's not about being perfect. It's about refusing to repeat the story you were handed and deciding that your word to yourself finally counts, and realizing that the best way to keep showing up for others is to start showing up for yourself. Okay, did this resonate with you? Then tell me. I would love to hear your story. And if this connected with you, I'll be sharing more of these reflections. So I hope to see you back here soon.